Psycho. Norman Bates is not introduced as a monster. He's timid, polite, almost invisible. That's what makes the horror so corrosive. Hitchcock's Psycho cracked open the foundations of cinema by showing that the greatest danger hides in the most unassuming figure. Marion Crane's murder in the shower isn't just shocking because of violence, it's because the story betrays its audience, killing the supposed protagonist halfway through. Identity itself becomes unstable as Norman's fractured mind fuses with his dead mother's. Every soft smile, every awkward gesture is a mask for the internal storm of guilt and repression. The infamous shower scene works because your body reacts before your brain does. The stabs are implied, but the shrieking violins and frantic cuts force your nerves to jolt. What unsettles most isn't Norman's crime, but the suggestion that beneath civility lies the potential for something equally fractured in all of us. Psycho doesn't end with catharsis. It ends with Norman staring at the camera, a faint grin tugging at his lips. And you wonder how thin the wall really is between sanity and the darkness behind his eyes. Rosemary's Baby. Evil rarely knocks at the door when it bakes you cookies and welcomes you home. Polanski's Rosemary's Baby weaves terror through domesticity, trapping its protagonist inside the ordinary. Rosemary is young, hopeful, newly married, yet every comforting gesture around her hides a predatory intent. The neighbors aren't ghouls or masked killers, they're smiling conspirators, dismantling her autonomy piece by piece. What makes this film suffocating is not the satanic cult at its core, but the way paranoia grows from everyday interactions. A friendly touch on the arm becomes sinister. A glass of milk becomes poisoned ritual. Rosemary isn't just gaslit. She's dismembered socially, emotionally, physically. She screams for help, but her voice is swallowed by the chorus of polite indifference. The horror works because the audience shares her helplessness. You question if she's imagining it until it's too late. By the time the truth is undeniable, the violation has already happened. The cradle rocks, and instead of relief, there's only surrender. A mother forced to embrace the very thing that destroyed her. The nightmare isn't just the child. It's the world that smiled while it stole everything from her. The Shining. The Overlook Hotel doesn't need to chase you. It waits, whispering until you unravel. The Shining is less about ghosts than it is about the corrosive weight of isolation. Jack Torrance doesn't arrive broken. He is slowly stripped of stability by silence, claustrophobia, and the hotel's malignant memory. Every hallway echoes with suggestion. Is it madness or haunting? The genius of Kubrick's vision lies in ambiguity. The camera glides like a predator, trapping both Jack and the audience in endless corridors of uncertainty. As Jack's mind cracks, the hotel exploits every fracture: alcoholism, resentment, inadequacy. Wendy and Danny are not merely victims of Jack's violence, but prisoners of a malignant space that devours sanity. The act scene is iconic, but the more haunting moment is Jack frozen in the photograph, absorbed into the hotel's eternal cycle. The Shining endures because it doesn't answer whether the horror is supernatural possession or the slow decay of a fragile mind. It whispers a darker truth. Madness doesn't need demons. All it needs is time, silence, and a place where no one hears you scream. Jacob's Ladder. Reality dissolves like smoke in Jacob's Ladder. A Vietnam veteran drifts through a New York that flickers between the mundane and the grotesque. Faceless figures in subway tunnels, hospital corridors warped into nightmares. The horror isn't about monsters chasing Jacob, but about perception itself collapsing. Every familiar moment is corrupted, leaving him unsure whether he's alive, dead, or trapped in some purgatory. Director Adrian Lyne builds dread through disorientation, feverish cuts, distorted faces, a sense of the world slipping out of joint. It's psychological horror at its rawest, paranoia, trauma, and grief congealed into one. The most disturbing aspect isn't the visions, but the possibility that Jacob's mind is betraying him, rewriting his life as he dies. What makes the film unforgettable is its cruelty disguised as revelation. The audience shares Jacob's uncertainty until the devastating truth emerges. His struggle was the slow unbinding of a dying consciousness. Jacob's Ladder terrifies because it reminds us how fragile reality is. Strip away the comfort of certainty, and life itself becomes a hallucination that dissolves just when you need it most. Perfect Blue. Fame is supposed to elevate you. In Perfect Blue, it dismembers you. Mima, a pop idol desperate to shed her innocent image, transitions into acting, but in doing so, loses control of her identity. The horror creeps in slowly: obsessive fan letters, a website documenting her every move, a stalker convinced she's betrayed her true self. Soon, even mirrors rebel against her. Reflections smirk when she doesn't. Doubles appear in hallways, and her own mind begins replaying scenes she can't distinguish from reality. Satoshi Kon crafts terror through fragmentation, forcing the viewer into Mima's confusion. You no longer know what's a film scene, what's a hallucination, and what's reality bleeding through the cracks. Every performance becomes an attack on her psyche, every audience expectation another nail in her coffin of identity. The stalker is terrifying, but he's only a symptom. The real villain is obsession itself, society's, the fans, and eventually Mima's own. By the end, clarity is ambiguous. Has she reclaimed her sense of self, or has she buried it so deep even she can't tell the difference? Perfect Blue unsettles because it weaponizes perception. It whispers that in the age of endless performance, you may not belong to yourself at all. Black Swan. Perfection doesn't just inspire, it corrodes. Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan transforms ballet into a descent into psychological body horror. Nina Sayers lives under crushing pressure, her mother's control, her director's manipulation, and her own obsession with perfection. The role of the White Swan demands innocence. The Black Swan demands darkness. To master both, Nina fractures. Mirrors turn treacherous, showing versions of herself that act independently. Her skin tears, her nails split. Her body betrays her pursuit of control. Rival dancer Lily embodies everything Nina represses: sexuality, freedom, chaos. Whether Lily is truly her enemy or a hallucination, Nina's paranoia feeds until her identity collapses. The film unsettles because its horror is physical and psychological at once. The grotesque imagery of transformation mirrors the violence of self-destruction. Nina achieves the perfection she craves, but only by obliterating herself. The final performance is triumph wrapped in tragedy, her whispered, "I was perfect," echoing as both victory and death sentence. What makes Black Swan endure is its universal terror, that the pursuit of greatness demands not improvement but annihilation. The real nightmare is realizing your most perfect self may only exist in the moment you disappear. The Lighthouse. Isolation doesn't just break men, it unmakes them. The Lighthouse strands two keepers, Thomas and Ephraim, on a barren island where routine becomes madness. The endless foghorn drones like a funeral bell. The meals, the chores, the silence, all grind into delirium. Their relationship oscillates between comradeship, violence, and strange intimacy, mirroring the unpredictable waves outside. Robert Eggers traps the audience in claustrophobic black and white frames, where shadows stretch longer than sanity itself. Myths seep into the cracks, visions of mermaids, tentacles, and the blinding lamp at the tower's peak. The question isn't whether these horrors are real, it's whether reality matters when perception is rotting. Ephraim's desire for the forbidden light becomes obsession, while Thomas transforms into both tormentor and phantom. The sea, the storm, and the isolation gnaw at identity until the two men are indistinguishable from their hallucinations. When Ephraim finally embraces the light, the truth burns him alive, leaving him torn apart by gulls in a cruel echo of myth. The Lighthouse terrifies because it refuses to clarify madness or supernatural. It whispers that solitude doesn't simply leave you alone, it leaves you with a mind that becomes its own abyss. Hereditary. Family is supposed to protect you. In Hereditary, it destroys you. Ari Aster's film begins with grief, a grandmother's death, a fractured family, a tragedy that rips them open. At first, the horror seems rooted in trauma, a mother's guilt, a father's helplessness, a son drowning in shame. But grief curdles into something more malignant. Miniature dollhouses mirror the family's helplessness. Every character a puppet in rituals set long before their birth. Toni Collette's performance as Annie is devastating. Her face twisted in grief and rage. Her breakdowns so raw they feel invasive to watch. Yet the deeper terror isn't emotional collapse, it's inevitability. Every scream, every outburst, every accident feels like another gear in a mechanism already in motion. The occult revelation doesn't arrive as a twist but as confirmation. This family was doomed from the beginning, their bloodline bound to a demonic inheritance. By the end, choice is meaningless. Destiny has consumed them whole. The horror lingers because Hereditary suggests trauma isn't personal. It's generational, a curse you inherit as surely as your last name. The final coronation scene doesn't release tension. It locks the audience in a suffocating truth. Some families are born to be devoured.